And Paris, lawmakers are back in Springfield for the fall legislative session. One of the central focuses or points of focus over the next couple of weeks will be the congressional map that's been redrawn by state legislators who've used the latest census figures. Joining us to talk about that and more are State Representative Tim Butler, the Assistant Republican Leader and the House Redistricting Committee's Republican spokesman, and Illinois State Senator Jason Barickman, the Republican Caucus Chair and the Senate Redistricting Committee's Republican spokesman. Now, we should say we invited all of the Democratic members of both the House and Senate Redistricting Committees, but none accepted our invitation. We thank you both for joining us. So, we understand, we know Republicans not that happy with the new congressional map. Illinois is losing one seat because the census shows a shift in population, but Democrats drew it to shrink the number of Republican House members from 5 to 3. Now, Senator Barickman, the REMAP expert at the Cook Political Report, says that these newly drawn districts could actually help Republicans by creating swing districts. So if the races are actually competitive, what are your concerns about this map?
Well, look, first of all, the manner in which these maps have been produced by the Democrats is just downright shameful, right? I mean, these maps, both the state maps, the congressional maps, are drawn for one purpose only, which is to fulfill a partisan goal. It's not about giving voters choices. It's not about making representatives more accountable to their constituents. In regards to the congressional maps, it's about giving more votes to Speaker Pelosi so that she can continue her reign at the federal level. Democrats in Illinois, when it didn't matter, pledged that they were for an independent process. The governor himself said that he favored an independent process. What we're seeing is just nothing more than politics that harms people. And, the harm has been shown by the lawsuit that played out today. But that harm plays out in every community, and it results in a government that's less responsive to the people it's supposed to serve.
So the way the maps are drawn, but you don't believe that the way they're drawn could also give any Republican or give anyone in your party an advantage, maybe actually swinging a district in your direction?
Well, again, it's not supposed to be about whether it advantages one party or the other. The question is, does it fairly represent the people? These maps have been drawn through a shameful process. There's no one outside of partisan Democratic activists who think that these maps have been drawn in a fair manner. So we've long said map making should be done through an independent process. Politicians should not be drawing maps. They shouldn't be picking their voters. And these maps, clearly designed by Democrats to favor themselves and to add votes to Pelosi's role out in D.C., I think do nothing to serve the people of this state.
Representative Butler, we know that you are in a superminority, and some critics say that this is just bitterness, having been left out of the process. But you are both obviously on your respective redistricting committees. How much of the process have you been in?
Well, I've been at all the hearings. I think I've been at every single hearing, if maybe just missing one. But certainly, as far as opening the door and having a collaborative process, as Senator Barickman said, I mean, we have not seen that at all from the majority. The Democrats have decided to go down a road where they are going to do this on their own, behind closed doors, not only not engaging us as much, but really shutting the door on the public. We've had so many advocacy groups that have testified throughout the congressional hearings and certainly the many hearings that we had for the legislative maps that wanted an open, transparent process, that wanted to be able to have a couple weeks to react to the final map before we actually vote on it and things like that. So I think participating in the process like Jason and I have, just showing up to hearings is one thing, but actually opening the door and saying, let's do this in a collaborative manner certainly hasn't happened. And we've given the Democrats lots of options to be able to do that. We've introduced legislation that would have allowed for the commission process to take place. All the Democrats on the congressional level in Illinois within the delegation have supported H.R. 1, which in it has an independent process to draw congressional maps. So people like Marie Newman and Lauren Underwood and Sean Castro support an independent process. Yet when you read news reports that they're in locked doors meeting with their legislative counterparts to draw the maps, really doesn't do the process well and certainly doesn't reflect the will of the people that we've seen throughout all these hearings.
Okay, so moving on to another subject, something else that could be coming up or that is likely coming up this week or next week, another issue under consideration. It's the revocation of the Illinois parental notification law that requires a parent or adult family member to be notified at least 48 hours in advance of a minor receiving a surgical or medication abortion. Now, here's what Republican Senator Sue Rezin said earlier today.
The parent should be notified. They should know that their child, their minor child, is having such a major procedure that's going to affect them their entire life.
Now, parental permission is not required for the abortion to be performed, and the minor can ask a judge to waive the notification requirement. Representative Butler, back to you. Why do Democrats want this law repealed?
Well, I'm not sure why they want this law repealed, because I think it works very well in Illinois, because I think such a major medical decision for a minor should be discussed with someone's parents. I think that's an important part of this. Look, I am not an abortion supporter. I'm pro-life, but certainly having the ability in law to discuss this with your parent is the right way to go. This is a major decision. And I think, the Democrats are overreacting in this situation and overreaching on this. This is something that a wide swath of people on all ends of the political spectrum support. And I think it's really overreaching to do away with parental notification with something that actually works in Illinois, because at the end of the day, what all of us want to see is a reduction in abortions in Illinois. And what we've seen over the last several years under Democrat control in the legislature and now Governor Pritzker is an expansion of abortion in Illinois, and that's not the way we should be going.
And before we run out of time, finally, the governor also wants to change the Health Care Right of Conscience Act because people are using it to avoid getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, the intention of this law was to allow people to avoid certain health care services, but should people, Senator Barickman, should they be allowed to use it to avoid a widespread public health guideline? And we've got about 20 seconds. I apologize.
Well, look, this is another instance of, Governor Pritzker has been mandating and controlling people's lives for a year and a half. And I think the public is resisting that. They're looking to things like this existing law to protect them from Governor Pritzker's overreach. If the governor really wanted to protect the people of Illinois, he'd engage the legislature in a collaborative process. We call that the legislative process. To date, the governor has issued maybe 100 executive orders. He's done it unilaterally. He's approached this COVID pandemic from a one-size-fits-all approach, rather than embracing the 177 members of the legislature who represent millions of people across the state in all geographies. Instead, the governor's gone it alone, and he's continuing to try to do that with his attempt to rewrite this law and take away the freedoms that many Illinoisans already have.
All right, that's where we'll have to leave it. Our thanks to Illinois State Representative Tim Butler and State Senator Jason Barickman for joining us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.